For a great cup of joe, there's one thing you should know. Your morning brew can also be playful. Buff Boy Brewing guys make the temperature rise, and you surely feel naughty when you swallow our coffee. If you want some real heat, give your mouth a fine treat. You will want some more, rest assured. Buff Boy Brewing, you can't get enough of.
It's time for The Scribble, your weekly fix of celebrity chats, bizarre stories in the news, and basic random chatter with best-selling author and syndicated radio host Jeremy Bradley. Make sure your seat is in the upright and locked position and your barf bag is securely in place. Here's Jeremy Bradley.
Thank you very much, Larson. That intro never gets old, and we're going on, 3 years or so of doing this show? This is Jeremy Bradley. This is The Scribble. This is going to be a good 30 minutes for you. Thanks for tuning in today at thescribbleshow.com and on your favorite podcast app. That's the easiest way because I'm still thrown for a loop on that whole iTunes thing, and I still don't quite understand what exactly happened. It's still iTunes, but it's not. Anyway. Remember, I'm a BlackBerry guy, so I've never been on iTunes before in my life. There's a lot to talk about as we head into a holiday weekend, as we consider this on the radio anyway, a free week, because this is the time when most people are on holidays. People are getting their last little summer fling on and, not really listening to the radio. Now, in podcast land, that doesn't necessarily apply, does it, I guess, because you can download this anytime and take it with you, so, okay. But at least in radio, you kind of have that attitude of, hey, nobody's listening, so I can get away with a bit of other shit that I wouldn't be able to on the regular days. Here on the podcast, we can swear, apparently, and we can say shit. All right. Speaking of shit, though, you know what? We have an election coming up in my home province. I was going to say hometown. Manitoba is a province. We've got a provincial election happening in a little over a week, and I have some disappointing news about the political leaders, okay? Now, I know, here we go. Americans are going to go and say, okay, you want to talk messed up politics? Really? No, but this is interesting because I reached out to the party leaders just to see if I could talk to them. Just to see if I could talk to these people who want to be the leader of the province. Will they talk to an average Joe? Or even me. I'll have that story coming up. It's 30 minutes of time-wasting fun on the Scribble, and it starts right after this.
Who are the Kardashians feuding with now? What did that little thug Justin Bieber do this time? Who's getting hitched? And who's headed for Splitsville? Hear the latest celebrity news and gossip every day on Entertainment Wrap-Up. The good, the bad, the ugly, but mostly the ridiculously hilarious. It's all recapped in this daily segment at entertainmentwrapup.com. Have a laugh at the expense of the rich and famous when they take themselves way too seriously. It's 3 minutes of time-wasting fun at entertainmentwrapup.com. Check out Entertainment Wrap-Up at entertainmentwrapup.com. Brought to you by Speak Free Books.
Isn't it crazy that you wait for payday, but before you know it, you're strapped for cash again? It's time to stop blowing your money and become a smart spender with the book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate at cheapskatebook.com. Learn simple ways to cut costs at home every day and during special times of the year. Don't go broke at Christmas. Don't remortgage the house for a fancy vacation. The book is filled with tips to save you money throughout the year. Check out the best-selling book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate at cheapskatebook.com or on Amazon and iTunes.
We are back here on The Scribble. All right, so just a moment ago, I told you I was going to mention my story about politics. This one really, how do you say it? Chaps my ass? Chaffs my ass? I don't know what the term is. Anyway, so I'll start out by giving you full disclosure here. I have never belonged to a political party. I have never gone to a campaign rally. I've never... Actually, now I've got to think about that because I covered news back in the day. So I've never, if I have gone to a political rally, it's never been as a supporter or a voter. I've been working, okay? Nevertheless, I have never really taken sides in politics. I've never done anything like that at all. So we have a provincial election coming up, as I mentioned, and I thought it would be interesting to talk to the party leaders. So last year when we had a civic election, we were electing the mayor of my home city of Winnipeg. I thought, I'm not going to listen to the news because you always hear about how this newspaper is rooting for this candidate and this network has this bias and, they get funding from so-and-so. And so I didn't want to do that. And I didn't want to watch the debates either because, again, that's just mudslinging, right? You see them get asked a question, and then after like 5 minutes of rambling, you're going, did they really answer the question? That was a yes or no question, wasn't it? And it's very distracting. And so I reached out there were 9 people running for mayor. I reached out to all of them. 8 of them responded and were willing to participate. Now, again, it did take some aggressive handling after a while because some of them, didn't reply to emails or return voicemails. And one person did not participate. Now, this was funny because he's kind of a nut job, but he said that he didn't have a phone and he could only call at certain times. And get this, I would look on the phone when I would come in the morning. He was calling at like 11 o'clock at night. And I was like, who would think to just return phone calls? And the voicemails that he was leaving were basically like, yeah, I've got time now if you want to give me a call sometime in the next 10, 15 minutes. I wasn't near that phone at that time. I wasn't giving my, cell phone, home phone number or anything. And again, I thought, I'm going to be doing these on the phone from Los Angeles, so it's a quick 5-minute phone call. So the idea for this whole thing was I'm going to talk to each of them for 5 minutes. They're not allowed to mudsling. They're not even allowed to name the other candidates. This is 5 minutes about you. Think about the dates on The Bachelor, if you're one of those people who watches Bachelor and Bachelorette. What happens when they get the person, not the candidates, the competitors or whatever, when they get the Bachelor or Bachelorette one-on-one? What do? They trash talk the other guys or gals on the show. They don't spend that time talking about them, building themselves up or anything like that. And so that's how I angled this with the mayoral candidates. I said, there's no mudslinging. You mention so-and-so's name, I'm shutting you down and telling you to focus and continue your answer. And I thought, okay, we'll do this as a special podcast, which we actually did run it here on the Scribble, thinking that it was going to be maybe about an hour, because again, we had 8 candidates. I thought, some of them might run a little bit longer than 5 minutes. Oh shit. Some of them, they were running like 20 minutes. And after that 20 minutes, I would sit here going, are there any takeaways from this? Did I learn anything new about this person? There were a couple times when I actually got angry and was just like, you're not answering the question. Or, yes, but how? No, but I was taking a tone with them at sometimes. But here's the deal. At the end of the day, after all 8 of the interviews, I was thanked. I was praised for getting involved. And like I said, I'm a newspaper columnist. Yes, I have these platforms, but I am not a political commentator. I'm not a pundit. I have no idea. Yeah, I could take cheap shots and bring up a scandal and throw you under the bus by asking that. But what is that? I don't need a viral moment when it comes to Winnipeg politics. That's not, my audience is largely based in the United States anyway. So, I don't need to go viral in Winnipeg. And nobody cares about the election anyway, so I wouldn't even say that you could zing somebody. Nevertheless, I wanted to, just basically talk to these people and say hey, are you cool enough to just have a 5-minute phone conversation with a voter because you want my vote? So here we go. Now, fast forward to August and September of 2019 when the provincial government calls an election. So there's a 4-week campaign, and we had a meeting in our radio office, and one of our producers said, yeah, you know what, let's reach out to the 4 party leaders and see if we can arrange the same thing. I said, all right, fine, whatever. Again, I have no interest in politics, but of course I do see the necessity of casting a vote and voting in an election, right? I've already said that. So we reached out, I think 1 or 2 days after the campaign was announced. Now, this is a very quick campaign. This is not like one of your American presidential election campaigns that seems to go on for about 4 years. This is about a 1-month campaign, very fast, and I don't even know that we've had one that short before. And the provincial government called the election about a year earlier than it was supposed to be. So this has sort of thrown everybody off, but we're off to the races. We reach out to the 4 parties, and sometimes that's to their media at whatever email address, or could just be the general email address. For about a week, we had no responses. When we got aggressive and said, we've been waiting about a week, we need your response. Are you going to participate or not? If not, we'll absolutely let the audience know. So once we sort of gave them ultimatums / threats, we did get replies. Now, the Green Party of Manitoba was the first to reply very quickly, and said, we're going to copy the guy's campaign manager and he'll arrange a time for you. Okay, fine, we left it at that. Now, the Liberal Party had suggested a time for an interview. However, it didn't jive with my schedule. We just couldn't make that happen. When we did follow up and suggest several other times on multiple occasions, those emails went unanswered. When it comes to the PC, Progressive Conservative Party, that's the current leader in Manitoba, in the legislature, is Brian Pallister, the current premier. Here's the candidate. We had been ignored for about 2 weeks of repeated emails to multiple email addresses, and we even left voicemails to up the game. Never did we hear back. Finally, I got on the phone and demanded somebody in media relations speak to me, or at least get direct contact information for somebody. And then, of course, we did say we're going to relay this, that the only party that did not respond was the current one that's in power, and we'll let everybody know about that. Now, shifting gears to the NDP, that's the Orange Party in Manitoba. They had responded again after we said after a week and whatever, does anybody there, kind of a thing. And they asked if anybody else was participating. So it was interesting to get the different responses. Okay, so the update on the Green was we followed up about a week after their initial reply, and then we're told that there won't be time for a 5-minute phone call during the campaign. The NDP, that's the orange ones, had again said, asked a second time, is anybody else participating? Finally, we said, yeah, we've already answered that question. Are we going to make this happen? And it was, let's circle back later in the campaign. That doesn't work for us because we were working on a deadline. And then the PC party, again, that's the one that's currently in power. We never did get a yes or a no. It was just kind of we're reviewing the opportunities or whatever it was. And then, as I said, with the Liberals, they just never did follow up on rescheduling a time. So here's the deal. I don't take it personally as though these people don't want to talk to Jeremy Bradley. What I take that as is they're not willing to make 5 minutes for a tax-paying voter. I realize that, yes, the calls were going to be recorded. They were going to be, broadcast. We were very clear about that. We certainly weren't hiding it. But they also had the opportunity to listen to every one of those mayoral interviews to hear that it's not a zinger, gotcha sort of interview. And again, to me, it's very telling. It's very telling that you have these people who are willing to mudsling, right? When you see the commercials on TV or you hear the radio ads or you see them at a debate, which the debate was just a couple of days ago, they won't answer a question directly, but they're going to use their first 30 seconds to thrash their competitor before they tell you about how great they are, right? Just like a bachelor date. So it was interesting to me because maybe if I did give them a platform to mudsling, if I brought them on and said, I'm going to give you 5 minutes, tell me why candidate ABC is a dick. It'd be fascinating to know how many of them would then come on. But again, I'm giving you 5 minutes uninterrupted to have a conversation with me to talk about you and your platform and your party and why you're going to be a good leader for the province. You can't even do that. Isn't that strange? Isn't that a slap in the face? And it's sort of a reflection on your party. Now, if you're not from this area and you don't exactly know, like, we don't vote for the actual premier, the leader of the province. We don't do that. We vote for the candidate in our area, and then if that party gets the most votes, and then the party with the most people with the most votes is the one in power. Does that make sense? So we're not actually voting for Mr. Pallister, Canoe, whoever it is. We're voting for the local candidates in our neighborhoods. Okay, so I guess I can explain it like we don't vote for Donald Trump, we vote for the local person in my area. And if his or her party gets the most votes, he becomes leader, all right? So to me, their reflection is cast upon the candidates in their party. You can't make 5 minutes for a phone call. I mean, if I ran into them on the street, I guess unless they ran away or put their hand to my face and were like, sorry, I gotta go, I don't have time to talk to you. But you're chicken shit and you can't even make 5 minutes of a phone call. Like, I respected the Green Party at the very beginning for being the first one to reply and say, the campaign manager will be in touch. But then after a week of silence, and then we follow up and they say there's just no time for that. There's no time. If you don't have time for me now during your campaign, how the fuck are you going to have time for me when you're the premier? So it's bothersome. It really is. I realize now why people have no interest in politics. Because like I said, that TV debate was a few days ago. It was 50 minutes, 50 minutes. The 4 candidates were on there. There was a moderator. She was pretty much useless because these guys, the candidates, were just steamrolling. The candidates had a chance to ask each other questions, and again, so candidate ABC, my question to you is da 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 da. The reply would be, well, your party is da 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 da. Well, no, wait a second. I'm asking about your policy on such and such. Or before they even ask their question, they give you 45 seconds about like their platform or whatever, and the moderator's like, what is the question? Do you have a question? So these guys totally just pissed on the whole format of the debate. They really did. You could tell that they just were like, I've got my mission, which is to sling this guy and to bash that one and to call out this one on that. And then they had 3 journalists there who, again, tried to come in with hard-hitting questions. Did they actually get answers to them? I don't really think so. And I, quite honestly, after a while, I was sort of tuning out because it's frustrating. You know, you want an answer to a simple question, and really you're just getting the runaround. Really, I'm asking you about your policy on healthcare, and you're telling me about the other guy raising taxes. Like, okay. So, to me, that is a clear indication as to why Manitobans, and I'm going to make this even bigger and say Canadians, really couldn't give 2 craps about politics. You know, it's interesting when I watch CNN, and every night basically is about politics, right? You know, it's Trump bashing. It's discussion about what he has said, what he's done, what he hasn't done, who he's insulted, and, who he's buttering up to in the dictatorship countries and places, But in Canada, like, you wouldn't even know that there's an election coming. I can almost guarantee you that if I were to go and ask 10 random people to name the 4 party leaders who are currently running in the provincial election, I would guess that between 1 and 2 people would know the names. And if we had time, I would actually right now call 10 Winnipeg people, 10 friends or family members in Winnipeg, and say, can you name the 4 party leaders who are running in the provincial election? The people that I know could probably name maybe 1 person, but people don't care. And again, so this is the thing. It's one thing to say you don't care about politics, but really it's also your future that's at stake here. By not casting a vote, you're kind of doing your community a disservice, but at the same time, if you don't agree with anybody who's running, do you really need to vote? I guess I'm going to open that question up to you. Do you see what I'm saying here? If you don't agree with any of the 4 people or however many are running in your neighborhood, do you cast a vote for the least worst? Right? Is that the way to say it? The least worst? Or if I don't like the current leader of that party, will I just vote for another party just to throw out that vote? I think that's kind of what happened in our last federal election when Justin Trudeau was elected. Everybody, for the most part, hated Stephen Harper, the current prime minister. And I think a lot of people just said, you know what, I'm going to vote for anybody that's not Harper. Now, again, is that the right way to go into voting? I think we hear that with the U.S. election, right? People are going to vote for anybody but Trump. Anybody who can take on anybody who's running up against him, I'll vote for them just to get him out. But again, that's a bigger question of, so would you rather do something like that, even though you might not agree with the person running against, in this case, let's say Trump or one of these provincial party leaders? So do you just cast that vote just to get the other person out? Is that the right way to do it? Or do you just not vote at all because you don't agree with any of those people who are running in your neighborhood? Send me an email. Again, I did not think that we were going to turn this into half of the show talking about politics, but certainly I have now. Send me an email, live@jbonair.com, live@jbonair.com. I'd also like to know your thoughts about that. If you were, and you are, an average voter, I am too, I'm not making fun of you, I'm just an average voter, would you expect that a party leader take your call? Right? Sure, the people in your neighborhood, I guess, are kind of required to do that because, you're representing me in my neighborhood. But I guess, there's probably some of them that are really bad at doing that too. Would you be ballsy enough to just call up the party leader and say, hey, you know what, I want to talk to you for a few minutes? Maybe I should have just done that. Maybe I should have just said, hey, you know what? I'm just a voter and I want to talk to the guy. Is it possible for him to call me back? But instead, we presented this as a media opportunity, and maybe that's what changed things. Regardless of that, though, this is somebody who wants to talk to you and hear about your policy and your platform and your campaign, and you won't do that. Now, admittedly, these party leaders probably haven't seen the requests and don't even know that, we're being ignored or refused or whatever it is. So one could reason that maybe they are the ones who have set the direction for their campaign, since they are the leader. Could be the campaign manager who's acting as that gatekeeper, right? They could be filtering out things. So, the leaders of the party might not even know that we've reached out. But I would hope that you'd consider just picking up a phone and making 5 minutes sometime during the campaign. In there's the Labor Day weekend, so there's a day off. You have time to, walk door to door and hand out flyers. So if I asked you a question when you came to my door, you would just walk away? Well, how would that play out? Maybe it makes me almost want to find out where the party leaders are going to be in the next couple of days and tail them. And just walk along them on the sidewalk and start asking them questions there. We've got wireless technology. I can go out there with my microphone and beam the signal live around the world. I'm not that invested in politics, though, so I wouldn't go out of my way. If I really wanted to be a true journalist, absolutely, I would be out there. I'd be, But again, I consider this to sort of be a social experiment. I really find this to be fascinating that a regular voter can't even get 5 minutes with the person who wants to run the province and be in charge. So, again, tell me your thoughts. Live at jbonair.com. Live at jbonair.com. I did have other things to talk about today. And, okay, we're going to get to that. We're going to take a break. More on the Scribble right after this.
Ever had something to get off your chest but never had the balls to say it? That's a load of crap. Speak Free with JB.com is exactly what you've been waiting for. Your chance to tell it like it is and not care what anybody else thinks. Have your say on issues of the day. Join newspaper and radio columnist Jeremy Bradley as he tells it like it is. Hundreds of thousands of people have stopped by, including some well-known celebrities who have had a chat with JB and speak candidly about what's really going on in the world. You can join them too. Have a rant or a rave. Be brave and head on over to www.speakfreewithjb.com now.
It's never too early to start thinking about your next holiday. Have you checked out Mexico recently? From tequila tasting, swimming with horses, to ziplining through the jungle and watching whales and dolphins in their natural habitat, Puerto Vallarta has it all. Visit mexico.jbonair.com to see all the fun PV has to offer. That's at mexico.jbonair.com for hundreds of photos, interviews, and videos from around the tourist hotspot. Check out mexico.jbonair.com for all the fun. That's mexico.jbonair.com.
We are back here on the Scribble. Just during that break, I was told to remind you that as of August 30th, we hadn't confirmed any of the politician interviews. However, that could change since the campaign is still going on. So I don't know why I needed to give you that disclaimer, because maybe they'll hear this and change their mind. I don't know. Do we have another podcast before the election, though, is my question, because we could update that when the election is on the 10th. So we do actually have one more Scribble podcast. So, okay, here we go. If you're in Manitoba and you're listening to this, we could very well have a politician on the podcast next week. And what about a miraculous turn of events and we have all 4 of them for you? I won't hold my breath on that one, but yeah, we've certainly upped our game, by the way, because we have also fired off a rant similar to what I just went on. We've actually sent each of the party something similar, so maybe that'll nudge them and get them to participate. But enough of politics chatter on this one. We're already 24 minutes into this. I got to tell you, earlier in the week, I was having a down week. On Monday, when I woke up, I was just not into it. I was just not feeling like work. Now, I own our company. I host our radio shows. I talk to celebrities. I write our newspaper columns that are in the papers and things like that. Sometimes the staff does it for me. Anyway, I enjoy what I do. But I was just not into it. There was something about Monday, and I don't usually get a case of the Mondays, as they talk about on Office Space. I never get a case of the Mondays, but for some reason I was just going around sort of being mopey, and people were like, what's going on? What's happening? What happened over the weekend? Is his marriage in trouble? What's going on? And honestly, I don't even know. I couldn't even tell you what the issue was. And so, Monday went, I was just like, I'm just going to go home, whatever. I fell asleep on the couch for 3 hours. I left early because I can. And I got home, the dogs were, wrestling and rolling around like they normally do when I get home. And I fell asleep on the couch, woke up at whatever the hell time it was, and still just kind of felt blah. Tuesday comes around, and, I think I had a bit of sugar in the morning. So maybe that kind of pepped me up a little bit. But again, I just couldn't get into life on Tuesday either. So then comes Wednesday. Here we go. I'm out running around doing some errands, went for lunch with a colleague, and she says to me, let's go to the pet store, because I love animals. And she's like, you know what, you see some animals, maybe it'll cheer you up, maybe it'll change your mind. Well, we get to the pet store, and we go, and you see, like, there's the hamsters and the gerbils, and they didn't have any rabbits. I've got 2 rabbits and 2 dogs at my house, so I've got a thing for rabbits. But they didn't have any of those. And then you go and see, like, they've got the kittens, right? And they're housed there for the Humane Society. So it's not like these are like pet stores where they're selling them. They're adopting them from the Humane Society. They're just sort of, I guess, an overflow shelter, I guess, in a sense, at the pet store. And so I'm not usually a cat person, but as we're walking past, there's this tiny little kitten, and he's following me. He's not looking at her. So I knew it was a guy right away. And, he's watching me. I crouched. I moved to the right. He looks down when I crouch. He looks to the right when I move to the right. Or I guess he looks to the left when I move to the right? Because that would be his left. Anyway, you get what I'm saying. And then I went and put my hand on the glass, and he sort of gave me 5. And she did all these exact same things, and the cat didn't follow, didn't do anything like that. And so she's like, oh my God, he likes you. So in the mood that I'm in, I go and ask one of the employees. I'm like, can we see that kitten? And so we go into the little room, like you're kind of in this, like, separated door area. It almost felt like a confessional booth where it's just very small, and they close the door, I guess, so the animal can't go running out, or I can't go running out with the animal. And this thing comes in, and he's totally, like, not into me at that point. Once he's free, he's, like, jumping up on the counter, and he's going under the chairs, and there was a scratching thing there, and he's going and scratching that. And then the girl keeps, like, trying to put him on my lap, or, like, he didn't want to see me at that point. So in the moment, I was like, oh my God, I'm getting this kitten, because I was flattered that he was paying attention to me. And then once we actually go in and I can physically interact with him, I was like, yeah, that little dick, you know what? No. And I had said, okay, here's the deal. If on Friday this little kitten is still here, I will greatly consider it and then perhaps adopt him. It is Friday right now, as I've mentioned. However, I don't think the store is open yet as we're doing this show, so I can't tell you what happened for sure. But in my head, I'm just like, you know what? I was kind of feeling blah. This is obviously, I don't want to say an impulse buy. And again, I have pets, right? I have a dog that's 11 years old. I had a rabbit that was 11 years old. He just died in February. So I understand the commitment of a pet, right? I'm not just irrationally making a decision here because I had a bad day and I want a kitten. I feel that I have a big enough house. I have money. I've got the means. I can adopt an animal to give it a home. That's just kind of my thing. So stay tuned, because on the next show, we might have politicians and we might have a pet update from my house. Not making any promises. I've said the word province how many times today as well. One more break. We're back after this on The Scribble.
We hear you chirping. Get scribbling. Tweet up the Scribble at The Scribble Show. Join the discussion with Jeremy Bradley. It's all going down right now on Twitter at The Scribble Show and at thescribbleshow.com.
And we are so out of time. My name is Jeremy Bradley. This is The Scribble. Feel free to give me a shout anytime. It's always awesome hearing from you. Live at jbonair.com is the email address. Live at jbonair.com. I can't believe I talked over 20 minutes about politics today. But I'm fired up about it, everybody. Tell me your thoughts. Or do you get into politics, or do you just think they're full of hot air and it's not worth your time? Live at jbonair.com. I will talk to you same time, same place next week. Thanks for tuning in. Subscribe, email, whatever. Follow on social media. Bye-bye, everybody.
Want more Scribble? Check out thescribbleshow.com for past shows, celebrity interviews, cheapskate tips, and more. That's at thescribbleshow.com and on Twitter at The Scribble Show. The Scribble is a speak-free media presentation.
If you want some real heat